interior guys. What's that challenge been like this spring, just where you're at numbers-wise and experience-wise?
Yeah, I think it's it's always a good and a bad thing, right? Where you have guys that are maybe a little bit inexperienced, but not a lot of numbers. So what ends up happening is they get a lot of reps. Now when they're out there extended period of time, they get more fatigued. So for them as a player, I'm sure they'd like a little bit of, not that they don't want the reps, but maybe get a blow in between a little bit more. But for me as a coach, number one, you get to get them more reps. You get to show them themselves on film more. And also, you like to find out how guys are going to perform when they are fatigued. And it's a little harder than they want it to be, certainly. So it's been good that way.
With Nash in particular, obviously, we've seen what he does in the weight room and all of that. What's the key for him in sort of like translating that strength into his game?
The key for Nash is to put all those numbers that he has. He can bench press this much and squat that much and power clean that much, all numbers that are off the charts. Now can you do all three of those movements at once and bring that over to the football field? Because really when you're playing football, are you doing that at somewhere along the line in the game? Are you squatting? Yep. Are you power cleaning? Yep. Are you benching? Yes. Usually you're doing them all three at once. So for him, that's the big challenge.
Where is he in that process?
I think the more reps he gets, the better he gets at it. And with the defensive line, it's about your eyes, where your eyes go, your hands go, where your hands go, your feet go, and all three of them work together. So for him, putting his eyes with his hands and his feet, and in that order, knowing that that's going to control it, that's where he's working on coming along.
When you've got guys that have to develop, how do you balance patience and communicating urgency? Like, you don't have a ton of time to get a lot better, kid. Like, how do you balance those two things?
Yeah, I had hair before spring ball started, Sam, and now it's all gone. It's a fine line because the guys, they want to do well, right? No one wants to do well more than the guy that's out there, right? But so it's not like they go out there and go, you know what, on this play, I think I'm going to do the exact opposite of what he told me to do. But sometimes it looks like that, and it feels like that as a coach. You're like, what in the world? How can you be doing that after this amount of time in practice? But it's all about habits. So how you make sure that they are all attending class or all going to meals or all doing whatever it is that they're supposed to do when they're supposed to do it, that translates to me now when all of a sudden Chins calls something besides a base defense and we have to move to or away from a pressure. How do you know that they're going to do it? Well, this same guy has been to all of his classes. He goes to every meal, doesn't miss anything. Usually that guy does a good job of making sure that he doesn't miss an assignment. And the converse is true. All of a sudden, a guy hasn't showed up for a class, or he's missed meals, or he's a sometimes guy. When he goes out on the field, he's probably going to be a sometimes guy. Sometimes he makes a play and gets a ret, and sometimes he's in the wrong gap. So I think those translate, and just developing the habits and continuing to do that with these guys. And our guys do a really good job with it. And it's just got to be an all-the-time thing. So we got to continue to make sure that it's not, hey, I did it 9 times, on the 10th one, it wasn't important enough to do. It's got to be 10 for 10 all the time.
What grade would you give your defensive line guys right now at this point in spring practice?
Well, I think that it's still probably a work in progress. I'm not going to sit here and say, I flunked them all because I'm such a hard grader and, I want them to win the Super Bowl. And at the same time, we're not A-pluses, certainly. We need to – there's areas that each guy individually has to get better at. And I think it's a lot like guys like to do what they're pretty good at, so it's harder sometimes to get them to do the things that they need to work on the most, so getting the guys to work on the things that they're deficient at is the most difficult challenge. So I think if I was going to have to grade him, I would have to look at, hey, these are the things that he did well, and I would grade that on a certain level. These are the things that he really wasn't good at but got better at. That may look a little bit different. So.
Who among those interior linemen is a vocal leader?
I think certainly Ty does a pretty good job being vocal. Colton Feast, a guy that's been around for a long time. He's another one. When he talks, they listen. I think those are two that probably have emerged. Casey Rogers isn't on the field right now, but he's certainly someone in the meeting room and in the weight room that is in these guys' ear all the time. Casey's done a nice job. It's hard when you're injured, and then kind of meshing that room together and having Garrett, who's really emerged, and Damian Jackson, who I think all those guys look up to, and so we got a pretty good core group of guys, especially with the two rooms together.
Chenander said maybe at the beginning of spring ball, it's hard in the Big Ten for for young guys, obviously, to play up front. What sort of challenge is it for Raquan Buckley or Marquise Black, some of the younger guys in the room, to think about getting ready to play in Big Ten games this fall?
Yeah, you look at the Big Ten linemen, offensively, defensively. Generally, they're older guys that are playing. It's just it's such a big, strong, physical league. So, for guys that are still kind of young in the process, Raquan and Marquise and Jalen, those guys, they got to continue to develop. They got to continue to get stronger. They got to take advantage of all the awesome stuff that we have here. Right? We talk about what a great strength staff we have, what a great nutrition staff we have. Our training guys in the training room are the best there are. So they have all those things at their disposal, and then they can't get bored of it. Got to keep doing it, and then all of a sudden you turn around and you go, oh, I got a lot stronger, I got a lot faster, but it doesn't happen overnight. So I think just not expecting the results right away and understanding that there's a process that you're going to have to go through to be able to compete in this league.
Those three guys are huge. I mean, Weaver especially, they're just huge guys. How are their body movements starting to maybe mold to actually playing the position and not just being huge?
Yeah, I think that, Jalen's one of the biggest guys I've ever come across, including in the NFL. And, he's also underneath that hugeness. He's a great athlete. You see him all of a sudden burst and you go, man, I didn't know something that big could move that fast. And, so see those guys kind of, I think, start off almost deer in headlight a little bit, where they didn't know where they were going and what to do. This big bodies, and all of a sudden maybe it takes two guys to block them. To now, hey, you know what? This is a big body that's going to take two guys to block them, and all of a sudden you see them flash across because they're starting to understand, where they're supposed to go, and the different calls. Hey, maybe they had a bunch of reps of the base calls the first week or so with that young group. Chins didn't try to stress them out mentally too much. Now all of a sudden, they're getting some blitzes in their repertoire, so they're starting to move around and do some things. So that's been fun to watch.
Do you feel like you have a true nose tackle?
Yeah, I think that with the amount of odd that we truly play, Nash is a guy that was brought here to play nose, so he's the layup one for me. As we go into that three down front, you'll see Nash out there in the middle, and then Colton Feast can play it certainly. Ty has played it. Casey, when he's healthy, he's played it, and then Jalen's a big guy that as a young guy that we're starting to get him some reps in there too.
With the way
Do you think you're going to play a little bit more 3-4 than you thought you were going to play?
I think it depends week to week on who we're playing, what the scheme is, probably what we're getting better at, or not. So I think that that's something that's definitely in our repertoire. It's something that Coach Steiner feels comfortable with, something I feel comfortable with. So I think that you definitely will see that from us. How much, I think, is to be determined.
with the way college football is now, sometimes if you're lacking in depth somewhere, people from the outside will look at it and say, "Well, just add a guy from the portal or whatever." Is it a different challenge when you're talking about the trenches in terms of if you had to go out and finding a guy that has real experience and you think it holds up?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. I think that it's hard to find guys in the trenches pre-transfer portal, and it still is. Finding big guys that want to play and are good enough to be able to be physically there, I think is a challenge. And then the portal brings on another list of challenges. We used to say when I first started coaching, I had a mentor that would tell me, hey, there's no waiver wire in college football. These are the guys that you have. You got to coach them and make them better. Well, now there is a waiver wire. It's called the portal, and guys are jumping in, and some guys leaving, some guys coming, and you don't know yet how that recruiting process is going to truly go until we've been through this whole entire cycle. But it's been crazy so far.
What have you seen on Mosai so far in camp?
Yeah, so Mosai is a guy that's got great twitchiness. He's got bouncy feet. He's light on his feet. He does a great job of that stuff. Got to still learn to be more physical in the run game. He was more of a skilled player, kind of edge guy coming through high school, but he had a great offseason with Coach Duval, so he's bigger than you probably saw him last, and he's coming along that way. Just learning to play square to the line of scrimmage, with that new strength, opposed to trying to out-athlete guys all the time. At this level, those guys across from us, they're big and athletic, so we got to do a good job of staying square and using our athleticism, but also being able to tie that into the strength. So.
It's hard to run around that 400 pounds.
Yeah. They used to say $5 cab ride. I have to get an Uber to get around him. He's a big guy.
What do you need to accomplish with the spring game?
I think the last week of practice, this week and really the first half of next week, I talked to the guys about making sure that we don't miss those days as far as being able to add to what we've done so far. You can't kind of coast yourself into the spring game when you only have 15 opportunities total in the spring. So the challenge for me is making sure they understand each one of these practices is like a game for them. They have to hit it and prepare it. You have to perform like it's a game, and then head into the spring game, and then, that we get a chance to get out there. And some of the guys that haven't had a lot of reps in Memorial Stadium get out there and be in front of the crowd and get to play. I think that's kind of the reward at the end of spring ball. But we got to make sure we don't miss any of these practices as far as how much better we get.
Is defensive line unique, and is it harder to get all the things in that you need to get in?
I know as an assistant coach, there's always a laundry list of things that you want to get better at, you want to get in, but at the same time, you want to get so good at doing your base stuff that you can do it, basically with your eyes closed. So it's always balancing the fine line. How much are you putting in to say that you got it all in, or how much are you cutting back to make sure that you're really good at your techniques and fundamentals? So probably, as a D-line guy, of course you think that this is the little world that I live in, so you always think it's difficult, but I think probably we all have a little bit of that, just position by position.